All right, let's dive into this one. This is pretty amazing. So we're going way back in time today to explore Sean's Bar, which is a pub in Ireland that has the official Guinness World Record for being the oldest pub in Ireland. We're talking about a place that's been serving pints since 900 AD.
Yeah, it's almost hard to fathom, isn't it? 1,000 years of history and laughter
Well,
and stories, all within those walls.
it really is mind-boggling. So we've got this article here about Sean's Bar. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was this mention of wattle and daub walls being discovered during renovations. That sounds ancient.
It is. Wattle and daub is a building technique that goes back centuries. So you have to imagine weaving lattices of twigs and branches and then packing them with mud and clay. That's essentially what these walls are made of.
Yeah.
It's a real testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the people who built Sean's Bar over 1,000 years ago.
Wow, so they're like a time capsule of early construction. And get this, they also found old coins during the renovations. Coins that were actually used for bartering back in the day. Imagine those coins changing hands over a pint of mead or something.
I know, and now those very coins are on display at the National Museum of Ireland. So it's really incredible to think about their journey
Yeah.
from a bustling pub in 900 AD to a place of honor in the National Museum.
Okay, so if we're trying to picture Sean's Bar back in 900 AD, what was the scene like? The article mentions it was a hub for travelers and locals along the River Shannon.
Absolutely. You have to imagine the River Shannon as this vital artery flowing through Ireland, connecting communities and facilitating trade. So, back then, Sean's Bar wasn't just a place to grab a drink. It was a meeting point, a news hub, a place where people from all walks of life converged. You know, merchants, travelers, storytellers, you name it, they all likely passed through those very doors.
It must have been an incredible melting pot of cultures and characters. So from this bustling hub on the River Shannon, Sean's Bar has somehow managed to survive and thrive for over 1,000 years. That's an incredible testament to its enduring appeal.
It really is. And speaking of surviving, think about this. Sean's Bar has witnessed Viking raids, the Norman invasion, the Black Death, the Great Famine. It's lived through some of the most turbulent periods in Irish history.
Wow. Talk about resilience. But amidst all of that upheaval, it's fascinating to think about the role a place like Sean's Bar might have played in providing a sense of normalcy, a refuge from the storms raging outside.
Exactly. Pubs have always been more than just places to drink. They're social anchors, places where communities gather, share stories, support each other. And I imagine during those times of hardship, Sean's Bar would have been a beacon of warmth, comfort, and perhaps even hope.
You know, one of the things that really piques my curiosity about Sean's Bar is this legend of Brian Boru, the High King of Ireland. The article mentions that he supposedly frequented the pub. I mean, can you picture a High King just casually strolling into Sean's Bar for a pint?
Well, Brian Boru's connection to Sean's Bar might be more legend than historical fact, but it certainly adds a layer of mystique, doesn't it? Now, Brian Boru himself was a fascinating figure. He reigned during a time of great conflict with Viking forces and is remembered for uniting much of Ireland under his rule.
Okay, see, this is where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just about the pub itself. It's about the stories that it holds, the whispers of history that echo through the centuries.
Precisely. Even if the story of Brian Boru frequenting Sean's Bar is a bit of folklore, it speaks to the power of these places as vessels of memory and myth-making. They become woven into the fabric of local legend, adding a richness and depth to their history.
You know, I've always been fascinated by the idea that places can hold memories, that the walls themselves can almost whisper tales of the past.
And Sean's Bar has certainly seen its fair share of stories unfold. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the conversations that were had, the deals struck, the romances sparked,
Right.
all within those very walls. It's like holding 1,000 years of human experience in your hand.
Yeah, it really does. It makes you think about like the echoes of laughter and music, and maybe even a few heated debates that have bounced around Sean's Bar for centuries.
Right, and imagine the changes, like those walls have witnessed, the evolution of Irish society, the shifting tides of fashion, the very language spoken within those walls. It's like a microcosm of history itself.
Speaking of evolution, this article describes Sean's Bar today as this amazing blend of rustic charm and warm hospitality. They even mentioned perfectly poured Guinness. I'm starting to get some serious wanderlust just thinking about it.
Ah, yes, the quintessential Irish experience. There's a real art to pouring a proper pint of Guinness. And it seems Sean's Bar has earned a reputation for excellence. That creamy head, the dark ruby liquid. It's practically a symbol of Ireland itself.
Yeah. For me, a pub isn't just about the drinks. It's about the atmosphere, the sense of community, that feeling of being welcomed into a place where, like, everyone knows your name, even if you're a first-time visitor.
Absolutely. And Sean's Bar seems to embody that spirit perfectly. Think about it. You're sitting there, enjoying a perfectly poured Guinness, surrounded by locals and travelers alike. Maybe a traditional Irish music session is kicking off in the corner.
Stop. You're making me want to book a flight right now. Okay, but seriously, imagine being able to soak in all of that history while enjoying the simple pleasure of good company and good drink. That sounds like the perfect blend of past and present.
It really does. It's a reminder that even as the world changes around us, there are certain human experiences that remain timeless. The need for connection, the joy of sharing stories, the comfort of tradition. And Sean's Bar seems to offer a direct link to those enduring aspects of human nature.
hmm I've always found it fascinating how pubs, especially those with long histories like Sean's Bar, become repositories of local lore and storytelling. It's like they're living, breathing archives of a community's memory.
Precisely. They're not just buildings. They're gathering places where stories are born, shared, and passed down through generations. Oral history in its purest form. Think about the tales that have been told and retold within Sean's Bar. Stories of local heroes, love affairs, ghostly encounters, and everything in between. It's a tapestry woven from the threads of countless lives and experiences.
That brings me back to Brian Boru. Even if his connection to Sean's Bar is more legend than fact, those stories add a layer of intrigue and wonder that you just can't get from a history textbook.
Absolutely. It's like each retelling adds another brushstroke to the portrait of a place, blurring the lines between history and myth. And sometimes, those stories reveal more about the heart and soul of a place than any historical record ever could.
Okay, so let's say someone is planning a trip to Ireland. Where exactly is Athlone, and what's the best way to experience Sean's Bar?
Well, Athlone is beautifully situated right in the heart of Ireland, nestled along the banks of the River Shannon. It's actually considered a gateway to the west of Ireland, making it a perfect stop on any Irish adventure. As for experiencing Sean's Bar, I'd recommend going beyond just having a pint. Chat with the locals, soak in the atmosphere, and maybe even catch a traditional music session if you're lucky.
I love that advice. It's not just about ticking a box on your itinerary. It's about immersing yourself in the experience, letting the stories of the place wash over you.
Exactly. Imagine stepping inside, feeling the weight of history beneath your feet, hearing the murmur of conversations around you, maybe even catching a glimpse of the River Shannon through the window. It's like taking a step back in time, but in a way that feels incredibly present and alive.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And you know what? Even if we can't physically travel to Sean's Bar right now, I think there's something we can take away from this experience.
Absolutely. I'm curious, what thoughts or ideas have been swirling around in your mind as we've delved into this deep dive?
Well, I think what's really striking me is
Yeah.
this idea that history isn't just about grand events and famous figures. It's also about uh, the everyday lives of people, the stories that they shared, the communities they built, and places like Sean's Bar become these living, breathing vessels of that collective memory.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it makes me wonder, what are the Sean's Bars in our own communities? What seemingly ordinary places hold extraordinary stories, just waiting to be uncovered?
That's a great question. I'm thinking about that little diner down the street from me that's been there since the 1950s, or that old bookstore downtown that's filled with creaky floorboards and the scent of aged paper. They might not have 1,000 years of history under their belts, but they've definitely witnessed their fair share of life unfolding.
Exactly. And think about the people who've walked through those doors, the conversations that have been had, the memories that have been made. There's a hidden history in every corner of our world if we just take the time to look for it.
It's funny. We often think of history as something distant and removed from our lives. But this deep dive has really highlighted how it's woven into the very fabric of our communities.
It's true. History isn't just confined to museums and textbooks. It's alive and well in the places we gather, the stories we share, the traditions we keep alive.
And maybe that's the real magic of a place like Sean's Bar. It's not just about the age of the building or the famous figures who might have passed through its doors. It's about that enduring human spirit that's been drawn to that space for over a millennium. The need to connect, to share stories, to find comfort and community.
Beautifully said. And perhaps that's the most valuable lesson we can take away from this deep dive. History isn't just something we learn about, it's something we participate in, something we create with every interaction, every shared laugh, every story told.
So next time we find ourselves in a place with a bit of history, whether it's a centuries-old pub or a cozy little cafe, let's take a moment to appreciate the stories held within those walls and the connections that have been forged over time. Who knows? We might even uncover a hidden gem or two along the way.
That's the spirit, because history is all around us waiting to be discovered if we just open our eyes,
Yeah.
our hearts, and our minds to its endless possibilities.
Well said. And with that thought in mind, I think it's time for me to go explore my own neighborhood with fresh eyes. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey through time. And who knows, maybe someday we'll find ourselves raising a glass together in Sean's bar, surrounded by 1,000 years of stories.
Cheers to that. Until then, keep exploring, keep discovering, and keep those stories alive.